Alright, welcome back to another video. So today's video, I'm going to be showing you how to change the spark plugs on your 9th gen Honda Civic. So in this case, I'm working on my 2012 Honda Civic LX with a 1.8 liter engine. This video actually will work for a lot of other Civic generations, but specifically this is a 2012, so the beginning of the 9th generation. It's a very, very simple thing to do yourself. No reason to pay a dealer or mechanic or anybody else to do a spark plug change on a car like this, where everything's very accessible. The one thing that I will talk about just real quick is the choice of spark plugs. Honda engines are pretty finicky, as are a lot of modern cars, about the spark plugs that you use. And when you go to the parts store, there's many options. The factory recommended plug is the NGK laser iridium spark plug, and this is the part number for use with this 1.8 liter LX non-VTEC engine. I will say that these are very expensive recently. These are $31 a piece at the parts store, which is basically the same price that you'll pay if you go to the Honda dealer and get them individually. So that is why, if you go price out having just a simple tune-up done on one of these vehicles, it's going to be, even the parts are going to be very expensive for 4 spark plugs. But obviously you'll save a lot of money by doing it yourself. Do not use lesser plugs or a different brand. Unfortunately, you have to pay the price and use these. These are a 100,000 mile plug, so you'll be good for another 100,000 miles. In my case, this engine has 200,000 miles on it, and I don't know the last time the spark plugs were changed. There's nothing in the history, and we recently acquired it. Alright, so let's get right into it. So as far as the tools needed for the job, you really just need a flathead screwdriver, a 10mm socket, and then I've got a 3/8 inch ratchet with a long extension with a 5/8 inch spark plug socket, which has the little rubber gasket inside. Alright, so to get started here, we're just going to take our flathead and put it in, rotate these little pins here. Alright. Then we're going to kind of pull it to the left, like this. Okay. If those pins do break, like one of mine did, it's not necessarily important. That's just like a beauty cover, and you can get the pins replaced. Alright, so once we've got our cover off, we're just going to remove the 10mm bolts that are holding on the coil. Alright, so now I'm just going to wiggle these out. Just set them to the side. Try to keep any dust from falling down in there. Once we get them all out, if there's anything falling down in there, you want to blow it out with compressed air before you take the spark plug out. That way it doesn't get down into the engine. So far, so good. Everything looks good. I want to make sure there's no oil or debris down in there. Looks like there's just a little bit of dust that fell down there, so I'm going to go ahead and get some compressed air and blow them out real quick. Alright, while I'm taking this out, let's talk a little bit about NGK spark plugs and all of the fakes out there. So you're going to be tempted to go use that part number that I gave you and go on Amazon or eBay and buy yourself some spark plugs, and you're going to be like, wow, he said those are $31 a piece and I just found a whole set for like $15. Well, I'm here to tell you, cloning or faking spark plugs is a big problem. And when it comes to buying spark plugs, I only recommend buying them from a reputable brick and mortar store or a reputable online retailer like Summit or Jags or somebody like that.
So here's our old plug. Actually doesn't look too bad. That is a factory NGK plug. And I did another video on the fake counterfeit NGK spark plugs that are floating around out there, and I'll leave a link to that in the description. Some of the ways you can tell, but the best thing is just to buy them from a reputable place. They don't have to worry about it. So you can see the old versus new here. Okay, the two iridium points where they come together. And this is supposed to be gapped. It should come pre-gapped. It's supposed to be 0.044 inches. We're just going to check our gap here. That looks good. Alright, so you do not want to use any kind of anti-seize on here. We're just going to place it into our spark plug socket just enough that it just barely grabs. Spin it down in the hole. These are gasketed seat spark plugs, not tapered, which means this little gasket right here is what seals against the compression of the engine. I will leave the torque spec on the screen for you. I just use my little hand torque meter here. Okay. Move on to the second one. So the only reason you really need to double check the gap is you never know if someone dropped one of the plugs. It could close the gap a little bit. They do come pre-gapped. Start them by hand, that way you don't cross thread anything. Run them all the way down. Alright, we'll just put our coils back in, make sure everything's seated correctly. You also want to inspect the condition of the boots while you're doing this. Everything looks good, just make sure there's no cracking or anything like that. Just lightly, don't want to torque these down too much. We're just snugging them up, that way they're good. Alright, so that's all there is to that. We just want to start the car, make sure it runs good, everything seems alright. Besides that, that's really all there is to it. It's a really easy job. Again, no reason to pay the dealer or mechanic to do this job. We'll put your cover back on the way it came off. I have to buy a couple of those clips to re-secure mine. But hopefully the video was helpful. If it was, be sure to like it, subscribe for more. I'll have a link in the description again with the part number. But I do recommend you buy these. Like I said, just buy them local. Go to your auto parts store and get them. That way you don't have to worry about counterfeits. Alright, that wraps it up. Until next time, we'll see you later.